Hi everyone, and welcome to the first webinar in our 2025 from the Helm series, and many thanks to you all for joining us. My name is Paul Knox-Johnston and I'm the head of marketing for Haven Knox-Johnston, and we've been putting on webinars for the boating community since 2021, which normally involve us convincing all manner of experts from all over the place to come and share their expert knowledge for free. Not always an easy task, I'll tell you. We have had lithium battery experts, paint experts, marine surveyors, sailing technical experts, all sorts. Last year, we realised that our friends at the Cruising Association held a wealth of knowledge, and we put on a very successful webinar about crossing the Channel and cruising the north coast of France with Bob Garrett. Following up for that, the Cruising Association have come up trumps once again, loaning us their expert on Orcas. And this webinar has certainly proved popular, becoming fully booked not long after being advertised. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome John Burbeck. John is the Cruising Association's lead for their Orca Project. He has been involved in the collection of data about Orca interactions along with its analysis, and under his guidance, the Cruising Association has partnered with international organizations like the Grupo Trabajo, Orca Atlantica, and I apologize for my translation there, to exchange findings and safety strategies. It is safe to say that John's commitment to communicating the most up-to-date advice on this issue has significantly enhanced safety and awareness for sailors. So, no further delay. Over to you, John. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us all about Orcas?
Good evening, Paul. Thank you very much indeed, and good evening to everybody. Yes, I know a certain amount about the problem that orcas cause yachts across the Bay of Biscay and off the coasts of Portugal and Spain, but I'm not, I repeat, I'm not an expert on orca, but I'm a relatively very experienced sailor, ocean yacht master, and about 7 decades of sailing behind me. We, in the Cruising Association, got into this project because of our concern about the problem that the orca were causing. And so I'm going to give you a presentation from the basis of a concerned association trying to provide as much safety information as we can. Right, the first slide is a disclaimer which says that because I'm not a member of staff of the Cruising Association, as are half of my team. We do have a couple of members of staff helping us, but the majority of the work is being done by people like me who are volunteers. And so the lawyer said we need this disclaimer. Right. What about the Cruising Association? Now, some of you will have heard about it, others won't. Set up in 1908 to help cruising sailors. We provide information, and it's information, trusted information about ports in great detail, and about the social side, places to visit in the port. It provides technical support and support with problems in 2 ways. We've got representatives in most of the countries you're going to sail to, local representatives who help with specific problems, and of course also provide information. When I was in Amsterdam, I was planning to come down the inland waterways, down what they call the standard mast route, which is where you can take a yacht. And the local representative there gave me a warning that it was unlikely that the bridge, which only opens just after midnight, wasn't going to because of problems. And sure enough, it didn't open. And then the local rep told me that it wasn't going to open for several days thereafter. So I made alternative arrangements. And it also arranges social functions. Quite a big membership, and covering everything, inland waterways, coastal, blue water, sail and power. It's a not-for-profit organisation, and it's got a clubhouse, a Limehouse in London, but social events happen all over the world. Okay, what's the problem? The problem is that the orca have become very attracted to the rudders, and it is the rudders of yachts. They seem to prefer spade rudders. As you can see, generally, if you've got a keel hung rudder, you're slightly safer. But they can damage the rudders so hard that hull can be split, and a few boats have sunk like this. How big is the problem? Well, it started in 2020 when there were about just over 50 incidents, of which 28 caused serious damage. 2021, which is when I got involved in the end of 2021, a dramatic increase. And in fact, that so far, that year proved to be the worst in sheer numbers. And you'll see that last year, the slightly reduced number of 120, in just over 60 boats damaged. And in the last 3 years, 2 boats have been sunk each year. And it's damage only. Whatever you hear about people being killed, serious injuries, we can't say there's been no bruising, but no significant injuries so far. What's the extent of the damage? So of the interactions, in just over half, just 60% of them, there's no damage at all. Then a third have moderate damage, and it's only quite a small number that have got significant damage, and of course 2 have been sunk. Now that's changed over time. The first 100 interactions, there were nearly double the number seriously damaged, and we're not quite sure why things have changed, other than we've noticed that sometimes the Orca now are checking the boats out rather than just attacking them. Nationalities of the skippers, apart from these 8, we've also had a boat with a Polish skipper that's been damaged. Right, whereabouts are the incidents happening? Now I'm going to show you a slide. Don't worry about the detail because I'll talk it through with you. It's the symbol that's important. Right, this is the Cruising Association's website, public website. We're making this information available to everybody, not just members. If it's a blue mark with a white dot, then that means that's an actual incident. And if you press the white dot on the website, you will get the full report, full skipper's report. When you've got an amber or a green, that means it's multiple numbers. So off the northwest coast of Spain, the amber there shows 53. So below that amber are 53 reports. And if you keep pressing in this way, you'll eventually get down to a blue with a white dot. You can go right the way down through the 53. There, if you go off the Gibraltar on the website, there are 115 reports. So that's an indication. So that indication is where the incidents are occurring. So that orangey mark off Gibraltar is 115. So you can see the spread of the incidents, and a couple also off Morocco and Tangier.
Hi, John. Just a quick one. Just had a question come in. How do you classify an interaction? That's from Nick Byrne.
Right, an interaction is either physical contact or where the orca are so close that the crew takes some action, either to avoid it or slow down or something similar. If they're, 20, 30 yards away, then we'd count that as a sighting.
Thank you.
So what about some analysis? Well, the behavior, as I said, spans. Sometimes they're checking the boat out, to sometimes it's a violent attack without any warning. Often it's just one orca will come in at some speed and just crash straight into the rudder, causing significant damage. And occasionally with those sort of violent attacks, they swim off very quickly. We don't record minutes less than 10. Because it's quite difficult for a stressful crew to say whether it was 6 or 7 minutes. But we're getting reports of everything from less than 10, or there was a very quick incident, to about 90 minutes. As one crew reported, the Orca spent about 15-20 minutes um, attacking the rudder, swam away, came back for a few more minutes, swam away, and then came back a third time. That's the worst. We've had quite a few where they've gone away and then come back again. And I say the longest lasted 90 minutes. And the numbers of orca involved is between 1 and 6. When it's multiple orca, you often get a more mature one, sort of standing off and communicating with the juveniles that come in and do the actual damage. It's been suggested, and it makes sense, that the orca are guiding the youngsters, and these interactions take place day or night, and pretty well in any sort of weather. Paul, any questions on any of that now, or shall I move on to the next?
I mean, there have been a couple. Mark Hagan has asked, how do you record an incident? Is it incidents reported to the CA, or is it incidents reported elsewhere?
They're reported to the CA on the website. It's a publicly available website, and all the reports go through there. In fact, I'll explain now about the relationship we've got with the marine biologists, and I'll explain the connection there. Right. So as a result of the 2021 incidents, what we found, speaking on behalf of sailors, what we found was that all the reporting and all the advice was coming from marine biologists in an organization called GTOA, Grupo de Trabajo Orca Atlantica. Those who speak Spanish properly will do a better job than me. They have been studying this group of orca for decades, so they know them all. They've got films of them, they've got photographs, they know all the relationships. And they were putting advice out on what to do, but basically from the position of the orca rather than from the position of sailors. We decided that if we worked with them, it would be much more effective for both sides. And so we established a partnership. Oh, sorry, I just missed a point. We also record uneventful passages through the area. We've had 423 reports, and this is for us to compare what did a crew do that didn't have a problem with orcas compared to a crew that did something and or something similar. So this is our control sample, and we got 423 reports that we compare. And I'll explain some of that later. Right, so the partnership. As a result of working with them, what we've done is we've linked websites and data. And we take all the reports now, and they're automatically forwarded to GTOA. They run a website, an app, which I'll explain later, and they give all their data to us as well. We work in 4 languages, so that our website and the reporting facilities are all in 4 languages. That's English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. They give us direct contact with the Spanish and Portuguese government so that we know that what advice we're giving complies with their legislation. And then we also share findings and knowledge. I would think we're communicating with each other every other week, at least every other week. And it's been a very effective partnership to date, given lots of good and useful information for the sailing community. Right, what about the orca themselves? Spectacular creatures. What most people don't know is actually there are two distinct types of orca. There's transient and resident. And last year, there's a debate amongst scientists about the proposal to make them two separate species. Now, why is this important for us? The reason is that the transient orca eat warm-blooded mammals. So they're the ones you see in these spectacular David Attenborough films, either knocking the seals off the ice floes or turning on their sides so their dorsal fins can't be seen as they sneak up on the seals. Whereas resident orca only eat fish. And the orca that is causing the problem for yachts is the Gibraltar Strait orca, and they are resident. So they're fish eating, they eat the bluefin tuna. So they're not interested in mammals, they're not interested in people, so they are not a risk in that way to any boat crews. The risk is a heavy bump or being knocked by the blow on the steering, knocked across a cockpit and being seriously injured. That's the real risk from these animals. Now, the resident Gibraltar Strait orcas are protected species. In 2011, there were 39 of them. They're now only, in 2023, only 35. So there are a population very much at risk and a protected species. So that means that anything that's done has to, you have to make sure that you're not going to injure or harm them in any way. And what about the particular population? As I said, there are 35, but it's only this 14 plus one other occasionally that are causing the trouble. So 20 odd of them are not interested in doing this. Now, in 2020, when it started, there were only 5. 2021, when there was a massive increase, is when these 14 involved, and you can see the date at the bottom of the slide. This is a GTOA slide that they've given us. But the good news is that since 2021, apart from the one that a little bit, essentially none of them are attracted by this activity. So it hasn't spread across the whole population. Why do they do it? And the answer is nobody knows. There are all sorts of suggestions that people have come up with. Everybody's got, in the early stages, had an idea. The reality is that all the scientists say that it's because they enjoy playing with yachts. Now, you'll find off the coast of America a few years ago, orca were playing with salmon on their head. They were swimming around with salmon on their head. And then they stopped it. And then middle of last year, they started it again. They just enjoy playing. And these orca enjoy playing with yachts. They spin them around, they push them through the water, as well as damaging them. It's also possible that when the adults are instructing the juveniles, that what they're doing, they're practicing the sort of behavior that they need to slow bluefin tuna, which involves them biting the tails of the tuna to slow them down. And it might, some people are suggesting, it might be that this behavior is sort of training or an experience for that sort of hunting. But the scientists are happy now. It's not an unpleasant experience that's caused them to do this, and the underwater noise idea has also been eliminated. Paul, any questions before I move to the next phase?
Nothing we can't leave till the end. So happy for you to carry on.
Excellent. Okay. Right. So I think out there I've outlined the problem. I've outlined what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a protected species, very clever, good communicators who enjoy damaging yachts. And the damage is significant and it's a possibility of sinking. So what do you do? Well, we've had 5 seasons, so we've started to learn some tips. And the first one is prepare. Stay safe, prepare. This is what we're telling everybody to do. Okay, what can you do to do that? Well, the first thing is to decide when you're going to sail in these waters, because the orca are not everywhere all of the time. And what we've done is with Cruising Association, one of my colleagues has prepared a table of the different geographic areas for each month and for all 5 years. And from it, you can see where the orca have been and where they haven't been. Now, it's a lot of detail, but where it's green, it means that there's been no orca attacks in that area. And the location on the left starts from Marbella down to Gibraltar, where we have had in the Mediterranean a few interactions. Then the next is Cadiz to Tangier, and then it's Cape St. Vincent to Cascais. So you can see, and it goes all the way up to the across the Bay of Biscay is the one of the options. What you can see there is, if you pull up this table on the website, you can see where it will be safe in every month, judging by the last 5 years' experience. And if you travel in that part of the sea during that month, you'll be pretty safe. And so you can plan a safe part of the journey. The next thing is you can go onto the GTOA website, and what they have, this is the last one they've done because there's been no change over the winter. What they have is these traffic lights for Iberia, and this is based on sightings and incidents. So if you've got a red traffic light, you know this is an area where the orca are. These traffic lights will be current. This is where the orca are, or the orca have been seen, or where they've been causing problems for boats. So you now know your first table tells you when you should be safe. You've made the decision. You're going to travel when there is some risk. You come to the traffic lights, and that will tell you how much of a risk there is in each particular area. You can
Sure.
also go on the apps. There are 2 apps, GT Orcas run by GTOA, and well, I've got a slide there. The red is where they've caused damage, physical damage. The browny ones at the top are where there's been a close contact, and the green is a sighting. So these are really current. This is where skippers are reporting live what's going on. So you can see through these sources of information, you're starting to build a good understanding of exactly where the orca are. And you've also got some Facebook and other social media. If you use search on the orca attack, you find that there are quite a few, and people are reporting on those. So you can know where these troublesome creatures are.
John, just on that subject, we've got a couple of questions that come in. Are these orcas tagged at all? Are they being tracked?
No, no, it's very difficult to tag orca because they slough their skin. It's one of the reasons they can swim as fast as they can. An orca will do up to 30 miles an hour. You need to go that fast if you're going to catch a bluefin tuna. Uh, and that means that traditional tags don't stick on for very long. The when they've tried to make more permanent tags, they've secured them to the dorsal fin in other parts of the world. The trouble is when they come off, they can create infections. And in fact, as I understand it, some orca have died. So there's a great reluctance to do that. Last year, the Spanish government authorized a scientist to put, I think it was four, but actually three got put on, and they lasted for a few months. That's the lifespan of a tag on an orca. They didn't provide much useful information, but the scientists have got some.
And another one just come in. Is this data for the traffic lights? Is it how regularly is it updated? Is it daily, weekly?
Uh, Very, I mean, it probably is, it's certainly weekly, and it's probably even daily at the busy times, or, it's whenever there's a major change in behavior.
Cool. Thank you.
In addition, so that's, you know where they are. The second thing is, we suggest you prepare for is what are you going to do in terms of deterrence? You've got a plan so that if anything does happen, you've got some deterrence. And what we've got is the skipper's comments library. In order to save you ploughing through all the 200 reports, we've edited them into, and this one is for noise, but along that pale blue strip, it's noise, sand, continue sailing or motoring, reversing, stopping the boat, or other measures. On each of those headings, you'll find all the reports, all the comments from the skippers of what they did in that particular topic. So I've used noise for this particular. So below this page on our website, which is available to everybody, you'll see all the extracts from every report where the skippers reported using noise. And this is an example. This is report 153. He had no time to drop the sail, deployed sand when he heard them round the stern, but this only had a temporary effect, and because they came back. But the sound of the foghorn was most effective to make them go away. So that's the sort of comment you'll get under the heading in that library. So you can prepare your deterrents. So you know where they're going to be. You're starting to think about that, and you start to think about deterrents. The next thing is there's a safety protocol. This came from the Spanish and Portuguese authorities. And there's a series of steps to take. There's no point in reading it in detail. It's all on the website, but it's about using calling up the authorities, keeping a low profile. And then if you can take photographs and videos because it helps the scientists identify who or which orca are involved. Deterrents, I've talked about loud noise. Sand these are the only two legal deterrents at the moment. Sand, it's not as effective as it was to start with. The idea is you carry a bag of sand and then pour it around the rudder because that confuses the sonar of the orca and they lose interest. But they seem to be getting wise to that and coming back later. Loud noise does work. Foghorn, crashing of metal objects together. Other people have talked about spikes on rudders. If you injure or are likely to injure an orca, then you're likely to be prosecuted. There's also firecrackers been used, and we are aware of some film that was taken of a yacht crew firing something like a flare or firecracker at orca. That was reported, and the Spanish police are investigating. Spanish police tracked the boat down and are investigating that incident. So what we say is stay safe, prepare, decide on your deterrents, brief your crew. You won't have time. Once it starts, it's too late. Brief the crew in advance. Avoid the most active periods, and I gave you some idea of where you can get that knowledge, monitoring traffic lights. And then the final thing is there have been no interactions in less than 20 meters of water and close to shore. So if you're in the area where they are and where they're active, then what we say is get into shallow water less than 20 meters. However, that does require the right conditions. So if the conditions aren't right, delay your journey until they are. And then we say travel in daylight if you're near them, because two things. One, you can avoid the fishing pots and the other obstructions, which are likely to be in close to shore. And also, if anything does happen, it's much easier for you and the rescue services to deal with the problem. What happens if you have an interaction? Now, stop or motor away sounds okay, which? And the answer at the moment is we don't know. One group of scientists is advising that you stop the boat because they lose interest in it. Their adrenaline flow reduces. And that seems to have worked for some boats. And in the library I referred to a few slides ago, we've got the reports of skippers who've tried that, but it hasn't always worked. There's another group of scientists who think that you're better off motoring away. The reason for that is that if it's the juveniles that are interacting with your rudder, the chances are that they're with a larger group that's feeding. And if you motor away, the juveniles won't leave the rest of their group. And certainly my advice would be if I was close to shallow water, close to the 20-meter line, I'd probably motor away. Get into the 20-meter water as quickly as possible. But we can't, at the moment, we can't say to you, do it under these circumstances, stop, and in those motor away. What we're going to do is we're going to carry on collecting reports to try and help skippers decide which of those two strategies to use. You must let go of the steering. If you mustn't, don't hold it. Reversing's an option if you've stopped. Reversing not if you're motoring away. Loud noise, I talked about sand and the protocol. And then most important of all, when it's all calmed down, all settled down, please report it. Unfortunately, not everybody is now, and they're putting it on social media, but that doesn't last. The detailed reports we've got will be there for many, many years. So that means that they're available to help the next generation of sailors, and also they're being used by researchers and the press to try and find a solution to the problem. Anything on that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we did have a question coming in saying a lot of these reports are from leisure sailors and yachtsmen and things like that. Have there been reports from local fishermen, or do they not go offshore that far? Or
Well, the problem is for yachts. We're not aware. Well, there's some suggestion that some of the small, tiny fishing boats off Africa may have had some bad experiences, but the problem that the Orca caused the fishermen off Spain and Portugal is that net fishing was banned, so they have to line fish now, and the Orca steal the tuna off the lines.
yeah.
But there's no suggestion that it's the fishing boats are being damaged.
And Eric has come in and said, "What's the idea behind reversing? You've put reversing in there. So how is that sort of?"
Yes, reversing was an early one. on the basis that orca can't are only interested in the rudder and they can't swim backwards. So if you're reversing, the orca have to chase you, and in fact, in the early stages, they just get irritated and they bump the keel and then swim off. That was the thinking behind the reversing, and it certainly worked for some boats.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, right. So what are we doing to help? Well, we're continuing with the online reporting. As I said, that's in 4 languages, and making the website available. We're currently updating it because it's important that it's the information is not only current, but also it can be tighter than we've tended to keep adding to it, and we've got to précis it and tighten it. I talked about the library of comments, continuing to add to that. And then we're spending a lot of time, well, that's the purpose of this presentation this evening, making the knowledge and experience widely available. Because what we now know is we can reassure many people who were, do I go or don't I go, that you can go and you can stay safe by taking these precautions, and that the risk, if you're sensible, is really very, very low indeed. And really in constantly asking for the reports. And then finally testing the hypothesis. And the one I talked about was, do you stop or do you motor away? We're testing those. We've tested a few in the past about whether towing fishing lines or an inflatable were causation factors, whether the color of anti-fouling was critical or not. And we've managed to remove those as hypotheses. So that's what we're doing. Now, possibly there may be an effective active deterrent. You'll all be aware of when meerkats are filmed. There's a sentry, meerkat sentry, sits upright, peering out, and then when they see, some sort of threat, they make a squeak, and all the meerkats run down the hole. That's called their startle message, startle signal. And orca have one. So this company, Geneswave, they started from Aberdeen Marine School or Institute, have created a device that is keeping orca off nets, fishing nets off Norway. It works. So when the device sounds, the orca disappear. They go about 50 meters away. Now, the current device is designed to be on a fishing net, so it was big and bulky. We've been working with them, and they've generated or created something which could reasonably be installed on a yacht. The Portuguese government is willing to let them try it, make sure it works, and everything was set up for last September to do it, on the basis that normally at that time of year there's a pod of orca off Cascais. They didn't turn up. The orca must have heard and decided that they weren't going to play. So the plan is to try and trial this device at some stage this season, perhaps working this time with in Spain, where the orca are more persistent. So watch this space. We're following developments on this. In fact, we've been helping them with the design, the yacht aspects of it. Once we know anything, then we'll be publicizing it on the website. And then another thing we're doing in our 4 languages is we're putting posters out to all the ports and all the marinas in the affected areas to try and encourage people to be aware of the risk. I think mostly the locals are now, but also encouraging them to report if anything occurs to them. So if you have that off the transom of your boat, we hope you've prepared. But ideally, we hope you can cruise in the area and not have that experience. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, John. I thought that was hugely interesting. We did get through there. There's been quite a few questions coming on. If we're happy, we'll move on to the sort of Q&A session. Right, questions. Let's have a look. Okay. Question coming in: from sailing from Porto, Portugal to Rabat, Morocco in the summer, would 100 to 200 miles offshore route be enough to avoid the orcas? So being further offshore, would that also help?
Being further offshore does help. The slight problem is, what month was it? Didn't say, did it?
Didn't say anything.
No, it's when you're coming into the African coast. You just need to be careful of what time you plan that for. Round about August, they start to move west and then north up the Portuguese coast. They move away from the Gibraltar Straits and the Bay of Cadiz. So arriving then would be safer than arriving earlier. They're particularly lively in June, July in that area.
And another interesting question: are the numbers of interactions only the numbers that have been reported? Do we think there have been many that have been not reported, or do we think that's not or do we think that number is small? Or
Right. The answer is that the numbers that I'm quoting are not only the ones that have been reported, they're also the ones that have been mentioned on social media. GTOA not only search social media and the apps, but on occasions they even go and visit ports when they've heard that a boat's been brought in damaged. So we're trawling. So I would say we're very high percentage of understanding of the scale, but not the detail, because not enough are being reported to us on the CA side.
that's interesting. I mean, so do we, if we do see a sort of increase, do we sort of see where there could be some sort of regulation coming through to limit sailing in high risk areas, or?
Well, that's happened in the past. It's happened twice off Cadiz and then northwest Spain in 2021. That was where boats under 15 meters were limited. It had to be, I can't remember, I think it was at 40 miles offshore or something. But the Spanish authorities banned smaller yachts closer to the shore. Yeah, and so it could come back again. Yes.
Yeah, very possibly. Yeah. And I probably think this is one for me, but I know you've spoken to other insurance companies. But one of the questions just come in is, do insurance policies cover orca damage? I know from our perspective, yes. But you've spoken to other insurance companies, and I assume the answers are all pretty similar.
Yes, it is. At the moment, there is no concern because the numbers are fairly small. The damage is manageable, and as I said, people are not being seriously injured. So compared to some of the other problems you'll be aware of when people lose boats on rocks and such like, and the liability, or when they crash into something else, the liabilities can be much higher than a damaged rudder.
And staying on the theme of insurance, apparently, I mean, are there any restrictions in terms of insurance coverage? I.e., do the insurance companies sort of say don't sail in certain areas?
Well,
Once
I
again,
haven't
I'm
heard.
pretty sure our answer is the
We
same.
no, we haven't heard anything to date along those
No,
lines.
no, and again, it's not something. And somebody has put in, and this is this in the event of an incident, should the normal claims process be followed? Should any preventive actions? I mean, with any incident like this, and this is from our insurance perspective, with any incident like this, the practice or the theory is you should always act as though uninsured. So basically, just if you've got any damage to the boat, get it fixed, get yourself safely to shore, and then get it reported. Then, and we'll put the claim in. Then don't worry about whether there's going to be that happens between you and the shore. If something like this has happened, the important thing is getting you and your people safely to shore and making sure the boat is seaworthy to do that.
Yeah, and I have to say we've heard nothing suggests any of the cruisers had problems about insurance claims. There
I mean,
have been, there
I mean,
have
in all
been.
honesty, we've got one going. Sorry,
You go on.
we've got one going on at the moment, which happened last year, where there was some jury repairs done on it. The boat got back in, it's got back home, and now the repairs are taking place. So there are claims out there. It is happening, but it is still quite a rare occurrence.
Yeah. No, what I was going to say is that there have been problems, however, with regard to the life-saving services, particularly at night, where they're often slow to respond. So that's a bigger risk. It seems, the insurance claim afterwards is relatively straightforward.
And now, finally, I think that might be the last insurance question, which I'm quite thankful for, because I probably should have done a bit of research there. So we've had a question from Christina. I have missed the sand part. Please, could you repeat how sand deters orcas?
Right. The orca, when they come in for the final stages of their attack, they are using sonar and they're getting the shape of the rudder through the sound waves. We know that they can get confused about this, and if they get confused, they don't come in and cause the damage. So the idea of the sand is around the rudder is it gives them a confused signal. We know that
Oh,
it
so it
works,
sort of distracts it, yeah.
partly because some people have been successful with it, but also there was one of the reports of a catamaran where the propellers are astern of the rudders on that particular boat. And the orcas kept coming in, picking up a picture that wasn't a rudder, it was something else. The propellers were stationary, and so they didn't complete the attack. They swam off, came in again, the picture wasn't right, swam off. So we know that putting a confused sonar picture helps keep the orca away from your rudder. And as a result of that, people have suggested, could you do other things like putting, ropes down or other things? And the answer is possibly, but of course, do you want to put ropes down near your propeller and rudder? And then others have
Yeah.
suggested you put soft bumps on the rudder once again to confuse them.
And there's been a couple of questions around are there different types of boats that are more prevalent to get it? Have multi-hulls been equally affected? Is a long keel, is a fin keel with a blade rudder? Is there a specific type of boat they're more concentrating on, or is it just general?
Until last year, it was mostly smaller yachts, less than 15 meters. But I'm sorry to say that last year they got a taste for the more expensive ones, and they're going for bigger ones as well. Catamarans, trimarans, monohulls, seems all. It's the boats that are being damaged are spade rudder boats. Uh, they've got long keels. It seems that the rudders are more secure. They're a different shape, and they don't seem to be as seriously damaged.
That would make sense. Yeah. And one of the things you said was one of the considerations that people have been taking or one of the deterrents that people have taken is to make a lot of noise. Apparently that can be seen to contradict with some other information, like sort of lie low on the deck or this, or make lots of noise, or how to act in any interaction like this, I suppose, is is going to be how is going to be sort of different on every occasion. But why is there that discrepancy there, or is there?
The answer is that one of these options will work for your particular problem. Which one, on which occasion, we can't predict. Well, all we can say is try these and see what works for you. Like as I showed that number 153 where the boat was stopped, the skipper tried sand, that didn't work. So then he tried noise, it did work. There are other people who tried noise, it doesn't work. It's the trick is to have a number well, the first trick is to avoid the interaction by planning properly. And when you get close, get in shallow water. But you have to have some form of deterrent. And the answer is have some sand, have some noise making ability, and try it, see what works on the day.
And someone's come in with a suggestion. Sorry, John Downing's come in with a suggestion: hanging a short anchor chain at the stern behind the rudder.
Well, that might well work. Yeah, that might work. But you need to be stationary when you did it, I would suggest. And we're waiting for someone to try it successfully and then let us know.
Again, there's still so much we don't know. There's still so many things that probably haven't been tried that may well work, as you say. It's just someone being brave enough at the time to test it, I suppose.
And reporting it to us so that we can pass the information on to everybody else. This is one of the reasons this topic's so fascinating. 5 years on, no one's bored with it because there are very few absolutes, very few absolutes.
It is, and it does, and it keeps on it keeps on rolling. I mean, is there any benefit for sailing in convoys if you've got more than one boat, or you say it's just say you've got a fleet of 3 or 4 boats? Is that safe, or is there any information behind that, or?
No, there are some reports where they attack one boat and then another one's close by and they go and have a go at that one as well.
Oh,
So
so, so the safety in
the
numbers isn't
answer is
necessary.
no, but have been reports of skippers who have had no problems. What we call the uneventful passages, where they travel in convoy down the shallow water. On the basis that if you're in shallow water, there is, particularly for the Portuguese coast, massive number of fishing pots, and if you get your propeller trapped in one, to have another boat around to help you is not a bad thing. But no, the answer is that the only thing that does drive them off is the big the lifeboats or occasionally big fishing boats who help out a boat in difficulty. Occasionally that will cause them to leave.
And I'm going to apologize about pronouncing this wrongly, but a question just coming from Heinrich. Are there experience reported about using 3 of Professor Kulik? Whale Pal V3? Don't know. Have you heard of that?
No, no, I don't know. Go on. It needs a bit more explanation to me.
Okay, I'll see if we can get Heinrich. If you can just send us some in, if we'll try and follow that one up. Have there been any interactions offshore, transatlantic, anything like that, or are these all close, or kind of not close to shore, but closer to shore?
They're all well, there's one possible one on the way to the Atlantic Islands, a close sighting, but no damage. No, all the ones that cause damage, it's this particular family, and they follow, they hang around off the Gibraltar Straits, waiting for the orca to spawn and come out of the med. And then they follow the orca along the Spanish coast, then up past the Portuguese coast and into Biscay. Now, and mostly they just follow them. But earlier in the season, then you get groups in different places, which causes odd incidents. But it's in the table, and they're pretty consistent year on year.
And no, I don't know if we actually got this one through. How far is far enough offshore?
Yeah, probably got to be 40, 50 miles.
Uh, and again, I don't know what one of these is, but is it legal to use a stinger?
No. If it's
Oh,
going to
great.
hurt the orca, it's illegal. They're a protected species. And one of the risks, pingers is another one that
Hmm.
illegal, because it's believed by the scientists that the pingers will damage the hearing of the orca, and because they need their hearing to operate their sonar, and they catch their prey by sonar. If you damage their hearing, they can't feed properly, and that's known elsewhere in the world, and then they starve to death, really.
I mean, this leads us into a whole lot of other questions being asked because, there's a question here about what sort of noise acts, firecrackers, are you allowed to use those? All
No,
that sort of.
firecrackers definitely not. Firecrackers are illegal.
Okay, and so what sort of noise can you make? I know you mentioned the old foghorn. Is there
Yeah.
any other sort of thing? Or
Yeah, banging metal bars has worked. In fact, it first came to notice when a boat was beating and it did a standing jibe, standing tack. So the Genoa cracked over, and that noise was sufficient to drive them off. That was reported by a skipper very early on, and that's what caused other people to try noise.
and I know we've spoken about hull shape and whether that has any effect on anything, but does hull material? So if you've got a steel hull against a fiberglass, anything like that?
No, no, hull material, hull shape. Um, what the scientists say, because they're using sonar when they come in and they're only interested in the rudder, the rest of it's immaterial. And color is not important because they're not using sight when they're getting close. No, it's the it's the rudder they're interested in.
And if they do come in and attack and there's an incident, or they come in and bash the rudder, do they get bored and go away, or do they just keep going on? I suppose I don't know.
Well, as I said in an earlier slide, sometimes they do just come in, damage the rudder, and clear off. Other times they spend a lot of time chewing it, and then they go away, come back, go away. So the worst experience for one boat is they came back twice, but they often go away and come back again.
And
And yeah, so this is part of why this is such a fascinating problem. There's no their behavior is unpredictable. They're incredibly intelligent creatures with very, very sophisticated communication language. And yeah, and they're enjoying doing this, it would appear.
and on that one, I mean, I know brought in a whole load of data. There's a whole load of data that you guys are sort of working on. How is the data being analyzed? Have you been using AI or anything like that to sort of help?
We have fed it through an AI machine, which came up with nothing we could use, unfortunately. So
It's
at the
not all
moment,
about intelligence then.
sorry.
It's not all intelligence then.
Well, no, because the reality is that we've learned that shallow water, we can spot that. The AI spotted it as well.
Hmm.
Stay in shallow water and a couple of miles offshore, yeah. But all the rest, there's no predictability about it. The weather, the size of the waves, strength of the wind, how fast you're traveling, all these sorts of things that we're recording at the moment. There have been no patterns that are identified.
That's
In fact, but
interesting.
what we have done is eliminated those, because what we've been trying to search for is patterns so that we can tell skippers what to do. If it all happened at 5 or 6 knots, then we'd say either travel at 1 or 2 or 9 or 10. And if it's, I came through that area in a storm, and I didn't have any interaction, but the boat a couple of hours behind me was unlucky. But there'd be plenty of attacks in storms as well. So,
Um, uh, is the is the density of interactions around Gibraltar more likely to be due to the higher number of boats or higher number of orcas in the area?
we think it's the high number of orcas in the area because they're all hanging about, waiting for the boats to come out. Waiting for the boats to come out. No, no, waiting for the tuna to come out.
Oh, through the Straits of Gibraltar.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
coming out. They spawn in the Med, and then they come out through the Straits of Gibraltar. In 2023, they were late coming out, and the Orca went into the Med. In fact, into damaged boats, or 6 boats between Gibraltar and Malaga. Never seen that before, but it looked as though they're getting starving, getting irritable. So they went in looking for the tuna.
Blimey.
Last year they didn't, and they hadn't done previously.
So that
Although
was all.
this
So,
year
so, so
we've had one boat damaged off just south off Cuta, which is inside the Med. That's not happened before, but we've logged that.
that's an interesting one because again, is it a change in their environment or their because as you say, them going into the Mediterranean is a one-off and hasn't happened since, but could obviously happen more and more if tuna stocks deplete or if they don't come out or anything like that. I think there's a
Right. The good news on that is that the tuna stocks are recovering. Partly,
good.
they think, because the net fishing was banned, and they can only line fish. The tuna stocks are better now than they've been for a while. Which if other people say, that means that the orca have got full bellies, so they've got plenty of energy, and because there's plenty of prey, they've got spare time. So that means they're going to cause even more trouble because they'll be fitter and bored. Um, you know, they may the pessimists may be right. Yeah.
And on that basis, I mean, again, are there any patterns in weather conditions or anything like that, or
No.
sea conditions? Just
No.
it is fascinating. And
Mm.
another thought about how to deter them. Would a strobe light deter them? Has anyone tried that one?
People have asked the question before, and to date, no one has tried lights. So you've got to be careful because they're not using their sight at the end. They're using sonar to come in on the rudder. So I'm not quite sure what the light might do at that
Mm.
point. If they're checking the boat out, it might scare them off. But no one's reported using light. If they do, then we'll make sure everybody knows.
It's kind of waiting for the first brave person to try it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And are there any statistics on rudder, propeller location, and shaft v leg propulsion or anything like that? Or
No, we've not been collecting that data. No. We only collect rudder shape. Is it spade, skeg hung, or
and
uh,
could
heel hung?
could that? I mean, could that be then? I mean, because I think we hinted at sort of the spade rudder sort of thing was the one that was more prevalent. Could the orcas be thinking that that looks like a fin, or is it?
Yeah, well, the answer is it's been suggested that it might be. It's a hypothesis which we'll uh, try and bottom out this season if we can.
And is there any, again, I know we've done hull shape, we've done keel configuration. What about sail or motor? Is there either one that's
No,
under risk?
no, makes no difference at all.
It is an interesting one. Have any incidents reported about having a dog barking helping or not? So there's a dog bark scare.
No, we haven't. No, yeah, no.
Um, a typical arc cruiser will pass by Gibraltar in September, October. So is there no real risk at that time?
Well, the risk's on that table, and the
Hmm.
answer is, at the top of my head, um, off Galicia, September's not too good. Um, I'm just trying to think of any other that I think it's September. You're fairly safe in Gib. That won't really help on the way to the Ark, will it? Um, yeah, but check the table. December. No, no. S- September's not wonderfully good,
And
except down by Gib.
okay, so down by Jib you'll be all right, but on the various other
Otherwise,
parts possibly not.
stay well offshore. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Would air
shallow
bubbles
water,
confuse them?
or shallow water. Yeah,
Oh, sure, yeah. Would air bubbles confuse them?
might do. Yep. I've, someone's asked me that before, and the answer is they might do. Yep.
Um, do orcas always attack directly from the rear of the vessel while moving forward?
Well, or if the vessel's stationary, the answer is they either attack from the side or the stern. Yes.
And this is okay. Yeah. Do we have to live with this risk forever and adapt passively to whatever happens in the future, or is something being scheduled by authorities, scientists, maritime officials to try to re-educate the animals without, obviously, without hurting them?
Nothing that we're aware of. No, nothing we're aware of. I mean, our view is it to some extent it's like stormy weather. You know the risks there. If you prepare for it and avoid it, then you're safe. On the other hand, you do prepare just in case you get caught. And it's the same with the risk from hippopotamus or elephant if you're on safari in Africa, well, or even India. What is it? 500 elephants kill 500 people in India every year, but they haven't removed the elephant population. This is a risk. If you sail in that area, it's a risk, and you just have to prepare for it. And because they're a protected species, the both the Spanish and Portuguese government are very, very keen to protect them.
And what's the difference between the pinger? I know you mentioned it being tested, and sorry, what is the difference between a pinger and the new device that you mentioned earlier that was being trialed?
Okay, right. The pinger just makes a sound, um, and the current pinger frequencies are not designed to be effective against orca, but they are likely to damage their hearing. That's what the scientists say. The Genus Wave device sends out a message. It's not a sound. It's just it's the warning message that orcas use to tell their colleagues there's a risk here. We need to get away. It's this in the same way as the meerkats do. You know, it's a particular sound that they use in order to keep away from a risk. The the device was originally designed to keep seals away from fishing nets, and then it was modified to transmit the sea lion startle frequencies, and then they tried it for orca. So it's been effective for a number of years on other mammals.
And it's just replicating a sound they already make, so it's not going to harm them.
It's exactly right. Yes, yeah, and it has to be the exact sound that they make. Yeah.
have the number of attacks fallen or simply the number of reports?
No, the number of well, yeah, the number of attacks has fallen. That's, GTOA and ourselves have searched everywhere, and we haven't got anything like the number that we had in last year and in 2021.
A great question from Jason Murray. If the orca are feeding on tuna, do we expect these incidents in Devon and Cornwall soon, given the increase in tuna there?
Well,
You never know.
we're not saying never. It was a few years ago, about I think it was 2 years, 2022. There was one off Ushant or
Fine.
Bassan, only about 90 miles from the Scillies. So yeah, they have occasionally been quite well north.
And I know we've been talking about all the ones along that Iberian and Portuguese coast. What about south of Gibraltar? Are we seeing orcas attack south of there, or is it purely where we're seeing them, or is that not being reported at the moment? Or
There are a few off the African coast, yes.
Mm.
They'll come out. They're on that website. Um, it's particularly in the very busy period. You get them off the African coast as
And
well.
I know we see you've given us the numbers for all the interactions, but what is that roughly as a percentage of the boats going through? I mean, if we had 115 interactions, I think one of them said,
120, yeah.
yeah, and how many boats? I know we don't fully know, but what percentage would that have been of the boats that have been traveling through that area at that time?
Right, this is a really good question, and we would like someone to sponsor or provide us with the AIS data of yachts passing through those waters. The trouble is, it's quite expensive to get AIS companies to give you the data, because if we had it, we could then work out the proportion, but the Cruising Association can't afford that data. So if one of the listeners wants to sponsor it, or perhaps an insurance company, a wealthy insurance, successful insurance company.
Oh yeah, I thought I heard something at the door. Sorry.
Yeah, so the answer is we don't know without capturing that data.
But is it? So that would give us that would then give us obviously a greater insight into what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
I have a hydro generator off the stern. Might that help confuse them?
If it's in the water between them and the rudder, then possibly, yes. But if it's a hydro generator that's some distance back, which some of them are, they're at an angle from the stern back into the water, there might be enough room for them to get between it and the rudder. So, yeah.
And is it always the rudder hull fitting damage that has caused the sinking of the sunken yachts,
As
or
far
is
as
it
we
damage
know,
to other
yes.
parts?
Yeah, as far as we know. And apart from the 6 that have sunk, there have been a few that have only been saved when the lifesavers come out with self-powered pumps and put them on. And I've seen a video of one of these boats in port with a serious amount of water coming out through the pump hose pipe, which is all that's keeping the boat afloat. Yeah, it's the hull's split around where the rudder stock goes into the hull.
Hmm. And any examples of hydrovane rudders being attacked?
The answer is yes. Yeah.
Hmm. Did you mention about the very active Telegram group with up-to-date reporting in Orcas.pt in Portugal?
No, I didn't, but I said I know there are a number. Yeah. Yeah.
And is there any time of day or night where there have been absolutely no reports?
Possibly, but if you're talking in hours and minutes, maybe, but throughout the night, there have been interactions. And our advice is, if you're traveling in the area where they are, travel in shallow water and in daylight, because if anything does happen, it's much easier to fix the problem in daylight than it is at night.
That's really good advice.
Mm.
Someone, apologies if I missed this earlier. Are we expecting orca numbers to increase over the next few years?
What, the population?
Yeah.
No, I'm not aware that the scientists are. They're worried about the fact that it's really the numbers have been reducing over the last few years. 39 down to 35, yeah.
Oh, blimey. So they're actually decreasing.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, so it's 2023. Yeah. There's not, as far as I'm aware, there's not a new calf in the population.
We are coming towards the, I think we're coming down to the last few questions here. Does it, the question is depth sounder interaction. I'm kind of thinking, does a depth sounder in any way avoid interaction, or does it increase interaction?
No, that was another one that we tested, and it makes no difference whether it's on or off.
Talking about shallow water, we have been meeting them in and around the rear Arusa coming in from sea, sailing inshore. Is there less risk because of difference in activity? So is the risk inshore less because they're less likely to interact with you rather than in?
Well, there hasn't been an interaction in water that's less than 20 meters. So there are, I don't know how many, hundreds everywhere else. This is, the AI, that was a question earlier. The AI spotted this at about the same time as we spotted it. 650 interactions and none in less than 20 meters of water.
Well, that's a significant, yeah.
That's right. That's what we think. Yeah.
The reference to the Atlantic Islands on the prevalence table refers to which islands? They're planning a passage from Portugal to the Canaries in late June, July.
Yeah, it's the Canaries. Yeah.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
about planning that trip now.
Yeah, they're planning it. Plan it. Yeah.
Yeah. Would hanging the outboard off the stern and running it at full revs at an attack be likely to deter them?
Might do. But
Yeah,
yes,
that's what
if it's a stern of the rudder, because there are some outboards that are in wells which go in ahead of the rudder, and they're unlikely to help. If the outboard is on the stern and is close to the rudder but astern of it, then the answer's you probably don't even need to run it. You just need to have it in the water with the propeller between where the orca come from and the actual rudder.
So yeah, if it disturbs the water
Sonar.
between them and the
Rudder.
rudder, then it might work.
Yes, exactly.
What about use of an autopilot? Does noise from this lead to interactions?
Doesn't. No, we've eliminated that. Doesn't make any difference. The only thing is, if you have an interaction, disconnect it, because they get very seriously damaged often.
Well, that was a lot of questions. I have to say thank you very much to everyone listening for all of those. And John, a huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise and everything with us tonight. I think it's been hugely informative. I hope a lot of people have sort of taken a lot from it. As I say, the webinar itself will be on our YouTube channel in a few days' time, hopefully. So keep an eye out for it, and we'll send an email out to everybody just to let them know when it's live. So I think that, yeah, just as per the end, there's our contact details. Any questions you have, please feel free to give either John or myself or the Cruising Association a call, and we'll be able to sort of help answer them as well. But again, a huge thank you to you all. It's been a great evening. Thank you again to John for sharing your time and expertise with us. It's been invaluable. Thank you.